The sun beats down on the sandstone, baking the air until it shimmers in the heat. A traveler stops, his boots crunching against the dry earth. He stands before a jagged, ancient wall that has held its position for centuries. His hand moves slowly, fingers brushing against the rough, weathered surface of the rock. He searches the crevices until his skin meets the cool, smooth surface of a blue glass amulet embedded deep within the stone. This is a Nazar. It sits fixed in the rock, a singular, unblinking eye staring back at the horizon. For generations, this symbol has been placed here to ward off the curse of a malicious glare. A silent sentinel watching over the path. He presses his thumb against the center of the blue glass. The stone is hot, but the amulet remains cold, a stark contrast that anchors his focus. The traveler pulls his hand back, but the image of the blue eye lingers in his mind. He realizes this is not an isolated relic. It is part of a silent language spoken across millennia and continents. He looks at the horizon, imagining the same symbol appearing in vastly different worlds. On the back of a paper US $1 bill, a pyramid stands, topped by an eye that watches every transaction, every ambition, and every failure. It is a modern seal of oversight. He traces a mental line back to the dark, quiet chambers of Egyptian tombs, where the Eye of Horus was painted onto sarcophagi to guide the dead through the underworld. From the bustling markets of the East to the cold, calculated halls of Western finance, the eye remains a constant. It is a silent guardian, a witness to the rise and fall of empires. It represents a watchful presence, an observer that never sleeps and never blinks. There's always a gaze, a divine or institutional eye that records the movement of history. The traveler feels the weight of this global connection. The traveler turns away from the wall, his mind shifting from ancient myth to the sterile, bright reality of modern laboratories. Here, the eye is no longer a guardian, but a subject of intense, polarized scrutiny. Scientists peer through high-powered microscopes, arguing that the organ is merely a product of millions of years of unguided evolution. They map the slow, incremental refinement of light-sensitive cells, tracing a lineage of survival that requires no architect. Yet, across the aisle, creationists point to the exact same biological complexity. They insist that such intricate machinery, with its precise lenses and rapid neural processing, could never arise from random mutation. They argue that the eye is a masterpiece of deliberate design, a system too perfect to be accidental. The debate has become a battlefield. Data is weaponized. Theories are pitted against faith. Each side claims a total victory, presenting evidence that the other side systematically rejects. The result is a rigid intellectual stalemate, where neither camp can move the needle of consensus. The traveler walks through the dust, considering this divide. The traveler stops. He kicks the sand, watching the grains scatter, and realizes the stalemate in the lab comes from looking too small. To break the cycle, he must look at the architecture of the universe itself. He begins to count the pillars that hold up reality. First, singularity. It is the oneness of the Big Bang, the singular, infinitesimal point from which all existence exploded into being. It is the origin of everything, the absolute unity that precedes all complexity. Next, duality. This defines the opposing yet complementary forces that drive nature. He thinks of the attraction and repulsion of magnets, or the way light behaves as both a wave and a particle. Duality is the tension that creates movement. Finally, triality. This governs the structure of our reality. It manifests in the three dimensions of space, the three states of matter, and the flow of time. These are not just ideas. They are the fundamental constraints of the cosmos. Singularity, duality, and triality. The traveler stands still. He looks back at the stone wall, his eyes narrowing, as the realization begins to take shape. The answer is not in the debate, but in the geometry of existence. The traveler reaches up, touching the corner of his own eye. He feels the pulse of blood beneath the skin and the subtle tension of the muscles. He realizes these are not separate from the laws of the cosmos. The pillars of singularity, duality, and triality are not distant, abstract forces confined to the stars. They are embedded within the very architecture of his sight. He traces the path of light entering his pupil imagining the physics of the universe collapsing into the tiny, wet sphere of his eye. Every blink, every shift in focus, is a mechanical echo of the Big Bang. The conflict between science and faith begins to tremble. If the universe is built on these three foundations, then the eye must be a deliberate map of those same laws. He looks at the stone wall again, but the amulet no longer feels like a simple relic. It feels like a warning. He is not just looking at a rock. He is using a sophisticated instrument that mirrors the fundamental structure of reality. The air grows heavy with the weight of this connection. He understands now that the debate in the laboratory was missing the point entirely. The eye is not a random accident. It is a precise, biological witness to the principles of creation, standing guard over every movement he makes. The traveler closes his eyes, blocking out the desert glare to visualize the interior of his own sight. He begins with the first pillar, Singularity. He traces the path of a single photon as it travels through the lens. There, he finds the fovea centralis. It is a tiny, dense dimple in the retina, a microscopic crater of concentrated cells. This is the biological singularity. It is the precise focal point where all visual information collapses into one point of clarity. Just as the Big Bang was the origin of all existence, the fovea is the origin of every image he perceives. It is the oneness of vision. He imagines the light rays bending, narrowing, and finally converging on this minuscule patch of tissue. The landscape is distilled into this one spot. It is a deliberate, singular destination for light. The realization hits him with the force of a physical impact. He opens his eyes, looking at the stone wall again, and for the first time, the image is absolute. The fovea has locked onto the truth. The traveler shifts his gaze from the stone wall to the blue glass of the amulet, then back to the burning gold of the desert sand. He experiences the second pillar, Duality. His brain does not simply record light, it engages in a constant, silent battle. Color receptors within his eyes are arranged in opposing pairs, firing contrasting signals that clash and resolve in the visual cortex. He watches the blue pulse against the yellow, feeling the subtle strain of his own biology. This is not a malfunction or a biological error. It is the fundamental mechanism of distinction. Without this conflict, the world would flatten into a singular, unreadable blur. The eye forces these opposites into a dialogue, creating the depth and texture of the reality he inhabits. He realizes that the tension he feels is the physical manifestation of duality. The eye is not merely a passive lens. It is an active processor of cosmic forces. Every color he perceives is the result of this elegant, perpetual struggle. He stands frozen, watching the colors vibrate, finally understanding that the conflict is the design. The eye is a mirror of the universe, proving that depth is born from friction. The traveler turns his attention to the final pillar, Triality. He moves his hand across the rough surface of the stone, feeling the depth, the width, and the height of the wall. His eyes capture this three-dimensional reality through trichromacy. Three distinct types of color receptors, each tuned to a specific segment of the light spectrum, work in concert to build the world he inhabits. He realizes that this is no coincidence. The universe is constructed in 3 dimensions, and his eyes are built with 3 primary channels to mirror that exact structure. It is a perfect mathematical alignment. He calculates the variables in his mind, the sheer impossibility of such a precise synchronization occurring by chance. The probability of this biological architecture matching the fundamental laws is effectively 0. He stares at the amulet, his breath hitching as the weight of this conclusion settles. The eye is not a random byproduct of unguided evolution. It is a sophisticated instrument, calibrated to the very dimensions of existence itself. The eye is a testament to a design that has been watching him all along. The traveler pulls his fingers away from the cool glass of the amulet. The stone remains, but the weight of his understanding has shifted. He looks out across the vast, shifting dunes of the desert. The landscape is no longer just sand and heat. It is a grand, externalized map of the principles he just uncovered. He realizes that when he looks into the eyes of another person, he is not merely observing biological tissue. He is witnessing a sophisticated instrument that reflects the very principles of creation. The sharp divide between the cold, objective language of science and the ancient, intuitive pull of spirituality begins to blur. They are not two separate paths, but two sides of the same observation. He stands in the silence of the desert, the wind having completely ceased. The air is still. He breathes slowly, watching the horizon. The eye is a mirror of the universe's own design, a testament to a presence that has been watching him all along. The struggle to define the origin of his sight fades into a quiet, profound acceptance. He turns away from the wall, his pace measured and deliberate. The world feels different now, more coherent, more intentional. He walks forward, not as a man lost in a random expanse, but as a witness to a singular underlying truth. The eye, the universe, and the observer are finally one.